My name is Jeremy Gruber. I'm the president of the Council for Responsible Genetics. CRG is a public policy organization that represents the public interest and fosters public debate about the social, ethical, and environmental implications of genetic technologies. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on direct-to-consumer genetic testing, our current concerns with the industry, and our firm belief that responsible oversight of the industry is necessary. Additional detail may be found in our submitted materials. While genetic testing has grown as a medical practice over the past decade, the range of gene variations tested for clinically remains narrow. This is due to many reasons, including the cost of testing and physicians' ability to rely on other indicia of disease risk. Primarily, however, physicians have been reluctant to delve into genetic testing prior to the robust development of scientific knowledge and understanding over the relationships between genes, human health, human environment, and lifestyle. Despite such reluctance on the part of healthcare providers to order and interpret genetic tests, private firms have begun to offer these testing services directly to the consumer. These companies offer individuals the opportunity to discover if their genomes possess SNPs associated with disease and cancer risk, nutrient metabolism, and drug response and metabolism, among others. They further offer risk assessment services, which look at several genes simultaneously to give probabilities of disease development over one's lifetime and offer diet and lifestyle recommendations on the basis of these genetic test results. Some of these associations and interpretations, however, are based on incomplete and inconclusive scientific evidence from which direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies extrapolate conclusions. Furthermore, the scientific basis for test results, interpretation, and risk calculation remain trade secrets and are therefore not disclosed to consumers. Beyond such questions regarding the clinical validity of direct-to-consumer genetic tests, then, the analytical validity, the accuracy of the genetic tests for SNP variations is also largely unknown to consumers and regulators. Nevertheless, the risk posed to consumers by faulty information remains very high. Consumers may make drastic prophylactic decisions when faced with high cancer risk, for example, or dismiss important preventative and screening recommendations in light of information they are at low genetic risk. Where the link between genetics and risk is dubious, these decisions may be medically dangerous. Furthermore, consumers may rely on information regarding drug tolerance and metabolism in deciding how to medicate existing diseases, important medical decisions that should be made on the basis of scientifically sound information. Finally, the information provided to consumers, both regarding genetic risk and information regarding familial genetic relationships, can have significant psychological and emotional impacts. We urge the FDA to request that data demonstrating the clinical and analytical validity of all these genetic tests and analytical tools, including algorithms or software programs that calculate disease risk based on several SNPs, be submitted to ensure accuracy. CRG also urges the FDA to require disclosures regarding the scientific evidence behind health and lifestyle recommendations given to consumers on the basis of these genetic test results. Furthermore, we believe direct-to-consumer genetic firms should be mandated to disclose the accuracy, sensitivity, and predictability of any results to consumers, and as well as potential psychological, personal, and health risks associated with inaccurate results and uncertain clinical validity. Additionally, the Council for Responsible Genetics has significant privacy concerns with purchasing genetic testing services in an online commercial marketplace, as consumers may turn over their DNA and other personally identifiable information to companies without a clear understanding of the privacy risks and without clear guidance as to their legal and regulatory rights in this area. While the FDA may not have full oversight over all these issues, we believe these issues must be fully aired in any discussion of the direct-to-consumer genetic testing industry, and that the FDA, FTC, and other agencies work together to comprehensively address those privacy concerns within their purview. There are currently no clear guidelines on the ownership of genetic material and the information derived from it, nor are there clear guidelines with respect to protection of customer privacy by the direct-to-consumer genetic testing industry. Indeed, consent forms and privacy policies vary widely within the industry, and without standards can be unclear and often subject to change. Whenever identifiable DNA samples are collected and stored, there is a high risk that violations of genetic privacy will follow. The methodology by which the information is secured is essential, yet without standards and oversight, we still know very little beyond the assurances of the industry as to what specific controls are used. Moreover, the privacy policies of direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies are not subject to health privacy regulations issued pursuant to HIPAA, and there are few state and federal privacy rules that apply. It is essential that personal information should be protected by security safeguards appropriate to the sensitivity of the information. Additionally, there is no transparency as to the degree to which personally identifiable health information is de-identified. Because not all de-identification techniques adequately anonymize data, it is important that the process employed by the industry is robust, scalable, transparent, and shown to provably prevent the identification of customer information. Finally, many DTC companies have adopted financial and data sharing relationships with third parties as part of their business model without sufficiently explaining to customers the extent to which this may occur and the potential negative consequences, without asking for specific consent for these purposes. An affirmative written request must be required before DTC companies can use any customer-generated information in this way. We urge a complete review of all policies and practices to ensure customer privacy is adequately respected, that full oversight is guaranteed. CRG is glad to offer any assistance it can provide as this process continues to unfold. Thank you.
About comparing DTC testing as compared to traditional clinical testing, but what I haven't really heard much discussion about is in terms of difference between the two, is the basic business, or rather evolving business model of direct-to-consumer. It appears to me that originally DTC was meant to generate income by offering a service to a customer. The customer purchases the service, and the information is then provided to the customer. That model doesn't seem to have been particularly successful in terms of generating a lot of income for this industry, and what I've seen the industry move towards are avenues of generating income beyond directly providing a service to a customer, but using that information derived from the customer in many ways that which are not necessarily specifically communicated to the customer. Some companies are starting to move in the right direction. For example, I know there's been a lot of attention to 23andMe, consent provision requiring specific consent for participating in studies that are going to be published in peer-reviewed journals. But those same consent forms, for example, by 23andMe state that if it's not going to be published in a peer-reviewed journal, it can be used for other purposes without consent from the consumer. And I think there are other companies that are using the original consent as a blanket blanket ability to use that information however they seem. So I'd like to hear a little bit more discussion about the business model of direct-to-consumer and how they intend on perpetuating that business model as they develop and grow.
Any thoughts?
I think, again, I would remind the audience there is no one business model in this industry. There are a myriad of many. And are there business models that are predicated on reselling the information in some way to other parties? Absolutely. Are there business models as personally other business models that I do not agree with, for instance, that include using the genetic information and implying that you can then sell people vitamins or foods to fix your genome? Unfortunately, yes. Our own model, because I can't speak for ourselves, still absolutely relies on providing the test results to the customer, and that's it. We think in the early years of this industry, privacy and data security are absolutely paramount, not only legally but by perception, and that trust is extraordinarily important, or you can go down a very slippery slope where patients, consumers, and physicians can doubt your motivations, and certainly we can see certain examples of that in every industry of healthcare, pharmaceutical industry as well. So if the core of the question is, are there different business models? Absolutely. If the core of the question is, how can we regulate these business models? I think that's much more of a difficult question and probably revolves around the transparency of the consent process, be it for research or be it for use of the data.
And I won't bore you with another several hours, but New York State also regulates the business practices of the laboratories that it approves. And so some of these models about how the money flows and who can have access to the information are specified in New York State statute and reg.